Deputy Speaker, thanks for your time. Based on what essentially could be termed as circumstantial evidence right now in relation to the COVID-19 funds, what have you as Parliament been doing as the oversight body to make sure that this doesn't go to pass?
Good morning, Chloe. Already under lockdown, the reasons for immediately setting about to have rules in place for us to be able to meet online, virtually, was precisely so that parliamentary work continues even under those difficult circumstances. Mm-hmm. And one of the dominant issues in those was to ensure that the declared disaster in the first place is examined from a variety of angles, including where we began to talk about the impact of the lockdown and the need for procurement of issues related to the pandemic. Are examined that the state of, we are in the middle of transforming our health system, the establishment of the National Health Insurance, and that we were particularly keen that all of the necessary infrastructure is in a state that will enable things to happen properly.
Deputy
because
Speaker,
evidence had already suggested before that people. This crisis is not just offering all of us to repair the health system, even as we deal with people's health, but also we stop in their tracks dead thieves who will want to use all sorts of means to try and steal public money intended for good purposes.
On that very point then, Deputy Speaker, on that very point of trying to stop thieves from benefiting out of a crisis, again I ask, what are the practical steps that the National Assembly has been taking to make sure that corruption is stamped out?
Yeah, remember that we have legislation in the first place, okay? So the reason for committees to meet, to ask questions, to pose to ministers appropriate in this regard is so that these stories of allegations of corruption are placed before them and the executive is asked to indicate what steps they are taking to do that. SCOPA, as a result of its own actions, have been active in this environment to ensure that the ministries that are involved in this, especially because they are able to operate across standing committees, has been involved in this thing. And there are results around some of those, including all other committees.
What are the results, Deputy Speaker? What are the results?
Some of the results are that the announcement yesterday in Parliament, I think also, of the immediate putting in suspension of the DG in Public Works was as a result of meetings between the minister and her teams with SCOPA, asking difficult questions about them and what is happening there. And as a result of which, these are the steps that have been announced, at least from what we understand to be the case. Similarly, in many committees, both at the national departments, but also in provinces, the NCOP has been able to follow through on specific allegations around this procurement-related issues.
Well, Deputy Speaker, I think...
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Yeah, the many committees have had to split so that, for example, at health, people went to specific hospitals that were named because they were staying in those areas so that they don't have to meet together at the same place to do this examination, but practically going to specific places to check the allegations that have been said and then reporting back for action to be taken. That's the sort of thing that committees have been actively doing.
Deputy Speaker, I think you and I will probably get into an endless argument about what could have precipitated the actions of the Minister of Public Works and the decision around her DG? Because my belief is that it's got to do with the report that came out ahead of the funeral of the struggle stalwart Endum Langeni. But nonetheless, let's park that aside. There was a special vehicle proposed by opposition parties, Deputy Speaker, to say if you're going to have the kind of spending that is going to happen and that is going to bypass the normal rules, you ought to monitor it almost with a hawkish eye. Why wasn't that set up? Because things are getting out of hand.
No, the objective for which what you call a special vehicle, an ad hoc committee, this is what gets done from time to time.
Why was it not done, Deputy Speaker?
Because it was felt that all committees must be involved, not a few people involved in a committee such as an ad hoc committee.
But do you see the results of what is going on right now, though, Deputy Speaker? Do you see the results of the corruption that is happening right now?
You are conflating two different things. Firstly, the number of committees that are involved in the process here are many. It's not one department, for example. And many committees that relate to those committees, each one of them needed to look at its own department. If it's social development, the Portfolio Committee and Select Committee on Social Development must be having its eyes on that department. If it's Public Works, there should be people looking at Public Works and the construction-related issues, temporary or otherwise, that are looking at it in every single instance, not a few people taken from each of those committees, presumably so.
Deputy Speaker.
What you call a special vehicle was in a sense, in my opinion, as I expressed it then, was preventing enough people to be focusing on each of their departments' expenditure of resources allocated to them, not just a few. And those activities have been going on. Those committees and their reports, even during the adjustments, those issues have been emerging in the debate.
Deputy Speaker, yes. We're going to have to leave it there, but I think the public, they have been watching these committees themselves. They have been disastrous. In fact, I think that's an understatement, because there just has not been any efficiency when it comes to these virtual meetings. But nonetheless, let's leave it there. Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Lechesa Tsenoli.